Hello and welcome to another movie review from MBE.
Oh.
Today, tonight, whenever it may be, we are going to be discussing 2010's Kick-Ass, directed by Matthew Vaughn, John, starring Aaron Taylor-Johnson. I think he might have just been called Aaron Johnson at the time.
Oh, there we go. We're getting another animation. No, we're not. It's not like
Nicolas Cage.
Don't know what happened.
Chloe Grace Moretz is in there as well. Whole host of stars. Mark Strong as well. Could go on forever. It's some cast. We will get into that as well.
Yes.
But this is what we're going to be talking about. A film from a decade ago. Can you believe it? That's only getting 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb, which is an absolute scandal. You can tell I love this film. Absolutely love it.
Steve, we have a reason to love it because the original comics, the source material which made this movie a thing, was kind of created, brought into existence in our very own suburbs of our own city, Coatbridge, just outside of Glasgow.
4 or 5 miles away.
Yes, it's a Scotsman who created the comics, so we've got that added incentive to love the source material and the movie, which was buffed. 2 movies, we're speaking about this one, which was buffed out of that source material. I don't know what crack they're on giving it. What do you say, a 6.?
7.6.
A 7.6. It's better than that.
I say it's at least an 8.
Yeah, I'd
least.
say maybe if we're going down the sort of metric, whatever that metric of scoring, I'd give it at least an 8.2 or something.
Yeah.
If we're getting into point something, it's better than a 7.6. That's disgraceful. But we'll get into why we think
we'll
it's
give
better
our reasons, yeah.
and a 7.6 as we go through this review, Stephen. Look, man, I'm not going to muck around because this movie doesn't muck around. The introduction gets off with a bang. We've got a body in a car.
A clatter.
A clatter.
Yeah.
It's a momentary flash forward, I've says. Right off the bat, Stephen, great music. Excellent organic introduction to the main man in this story, Dave, aka Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
Before he's a superhero, he's an absolute gonk of a man.
He's a boy.
He goes through the reasons of why he's just so ordinary. He's invisible to girls. He's not an out-and-out geek that he gets the shit kicked out of him, but he's just there. He's there, and he's not really someone who catches the eye of the bullies, of the girls, of anyone.
No.
Him and his friends are just beautifully introduced in the first 15 minutes or so of this movie. Marty, Todd and Dave.
Yeah.
Perfectly sets the tone, Stephen, for what's to come. Great music, as I did say. Really good characters. Lovely organic dialogue. Everything's here in the first 15 minutes of this movie, which is going to carry all the way through the 1 hour 57 minute running time. I love the introduction.
Yeah.
I loved the sort of extended sequence just following Dave, this sort of loser kid, through his life. He's not that much of a loser though. He's got his perks.
Yeah.
Going to the comic book store and whatnot, and just following this guy's life. They get robbed at one point, and they have their keys, or their money, and their what is it they get taken off them?
Phones. Comic books as well, yeah.
Their phones. It sort of explores these 2 shithead sort of crack dealers as well, who are pivotal to Dave's transition into superhero. What did you make about the first 15 minutes, Stephen? The flash forward. Just the great music, the sequence following Dave. It's a great way to start a movie. It's a great way to sort of introduce this character.
I liked the narration. There's Dave narrates quite a bit in this film actually, but the opening scene where he's actually talking about the guy on the skyscraper, it's not him. I'm glad it wasn't him because that guy was kaput within the first minute. Then it kicks into I think it's 6 months earlier, isn't it? And we see him outside the high
Great music,
school.
Steve. What was that song?
The Prodigy by it's Stand Up.
So it is.
So I downloaded it the minute I saw the film, John. I just love the track. It's just it fits well with the sort of flow of that sequence where they're walking through the corridors of the high school. You know, basically invisible, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, but you get to know Todd and Marty, is it?
Yeah.
You know, his best friends, and
sort
they're all
of romantic element as well to the story's introduced here. She's
Katie,
not at that point. But
that scene with the locker, that was hilarious.
Hey, gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Hey.
It's Erica she's talking to, not Dave. I love his awkwardness.
Yeah.
He is such an awkward guy.
Yeah.
And he has some strange fantasies about his teacher as well. And some online stuff.
Testosterone, when his testosterone dips down, Kleenex shares will drop by 30% or something.
Yeah, it's certainly not a family oriented film at this point.
Not a chance.
But
not at any point.
It's so funny, you know, because he's such an awkward character, Dave, and there's a bit of tragedy quite early on in his life as well with his mother, and it's they actually highlight it very well. You know that you're not going to get an origin story in the vein of Peter Parker. He says this, you know, she has an aneurysm, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where she just collapses at the
What a
breakfast
scene.
table. And it moves on
Speaking about cereal.
a year later or something like that, and they're talking about the bee on the box. Did they change his face or something like that? That's the sort of highlight of the day between
She's
the father and son.
empty-chaired.
Yeah, you know, and they don't really dwell on it too much, but I think this is a common theme throughout this film, with emotions and loss and death and stuff like that. There is some emotional moments in the film, which we'll obviously get to, but at the end of the day, it's a comic book film with lots of comedy in it, so you can understand why they didn't want to dwell too much on things like that weren't really that important to the sort of bigger picture, if you like.
Stephen, you says it's a comic book movie which has comedy moments, and none more is this highlighted and seen than when we move away from Dave briefly and we are introduced to Chloe Grace Moretz's hit girl and Nick Cage's Big Daddy character for the first time. Yeah. Bill Nye-esque laugh, very strange nasally laugh, but it's a highly memorable introduction to these two characters, Stephen, full of comedy, dysfunctional father-daughter duo, and just the sort of gun, him shooting her, the back and forth interaction. I can't recall what they're talking about. I think he basically she sort of batters with him.
Yeah,
that she gets an extra milkshake.
Yeah,
if he shoots her in the chest with a bullet.
That's what he says, isn't it? It's just like getting punched in the chest, and she says, I hate getting punched in the chest.
Bang, flattened. And not only that, it's high, he mentions later on, it's like high velocity bullets that he's pumping into her as well, so it's not like regular ones, so even then, I mean, it's just an incredibly dysfunctional relationship.
For later on in the film, because it's essential, this actual
He's
scene.
shaped this young girl into an absolute maniac, a war machine.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely pivotal, this scene as well, Stephen. Again, it just sort of encompasses everything that's good about the movie. There's violence.
The bowling alley. I love that.
Violence, great dialogue, great humour, brilliant back and forth. You're right. She says, I want a puppy, a fluffy one. And something about a teddy bear or maybe something like that as well. And he's like, what? And she says, I'm just effing with you, Daddy. I want a knife. What is it? A knife or something, or a gun? I'll get you two.
Yeah.
Just again, brilliant.
You always knock me for a loop, child. You know, he's such an oddity.
Yeah, he's wearing the jumper over the shirt with the tie. He just dresses very strangely, does Nick Cage in this movie. But we'll get into Nick at some point in this review. He is brilliant in this. He's in many ways the heart and soul in this movie. And when he meets his end, spoiler alert, but if you've not seen a movie from 10 years ago, then it's really your own fault.
One thing
guys.
I say, John, is when I did see the film, I was so pleased for Nicolas Cage, being a big comic book fan that he is. Missing out on obviously playing Superman must have been devastating for him, so he kind of made up for it in a way by playing a version of Batman, if you like, in this movie.
Did you notice the way he spoke as well, Stephen?
Yeah,
sort of in spurts. I mean, he's kind of grilling Kick-Ass, and he's kind of talking in spurts and then stopping.
It's based on Adam West.
Is that what it is? Is that the way he spoke?
Yeah, the sort of...
Because they always do something with the voice, don't they? Batman, Bruce Wayne always changes his voice up. Obviously, Christian Bale made it really deep. Where is she?
Nicolas Cage hated that, apparently. That's why he reverted to Adam West's version. That sort of broken English, if you like, the broken sentences, I should say.
That shows you the man's knowledge and sort of...
Very clever. Yeah,
and obviously the comic book source material, a man who loves his comics, and why he would have been great as Superman, but look, it wasn't to be.
No.
We didn't get a long-haired Superman, we got Big Daddy in him.
The chest hair sticking out.
You know what it looks like, Stephen? It looks like face app when you turn yourself into a female version and it just crops the jumper.
You look like a cross between a lady and Loki. It's weird.
And in my case, I look like a sort of Armenian lady.
Yeah. I always look like Andy Serkis for some reason. I don't know why.
And then when I make myself old, I look like the old guy from Home Alone who had the shovel that Macaulay Culkin's character was absolutely terrified of.
Shovelly Joe.
Yeah, Shovelly Joe. But I digress. I'm going off in tangents here about Face App and or Swap and obviously Home Alone and whatnot. We'll get back to Kick-Ass because that's what we're discussing here, Stephen. Absolutely brilliant dialogue in this movie. I'll get it out the way. Early doors. Stupendous dialogue. Dave and his friends, man, the back and forth.
Love it.
Why do we not have real life superheroes? Maybe because they'll get killed instantly, dipshit. Yeah. Just they're absolutely brutal with each other. But it works, Stephen, because this is what it's like when you have the sort of close-knit fraternity, friendship, whatever, at school. you absolutely borderline bully each other into sort of submission. That's brutal. There's no one more brutal than the close friendships. I mean, you can take it in the chin and have a laugh if you're not a serious chap, and you get that here. You get this sort of close-knit trio of friends, man. They're absolutely brilliant, highly quotable.
Great banter.
Yes. I had another quote from Partridge come into my head there, but I daren't repeat
I know
it.
what you're talking about. Hey, ya!
Hey, you cheeky. Brilliant. But, I mean, I've got quotes here, but I don't think I can say any of them because we tend not to swear on this show. We try to keep it clean.
With F's and C's.
Yeah. But we'll get into them, Steve. We'll get into some of the quotes that I've jotted down, some of the more memorable ones. But what did you make about the dialogue? I think it's only fitting that a graphic novel created by a man from Coatbridge, from Glasgow's greater area, us being the great purveyors of patter and amazing sort of one-line witty retorts and whatnot, it's only fitting that this guy has managed to imbue this into the movie a little bit, or imbue the movie with it, the great patter, the great sort of dialogue. It just reeks of Scottish patter.
Yeah, but you've got to give credit to Jane
American
Goldman
slang
as well, and Matthew Vaughn for the screenplay. You know, they would have played a big part in obviously the dialogue in this movie. But you're right, John. It does sort of reek of Scottish, west of Scotland sort of humour and banter. I think everyone in this film had some great lines.
Yeah.
You had the sort of banter between Frank D'Amico, is it?
Frank D'Amico.
His cronies, his gang,
Mark
in the factory when they're microwaving that guy. Just they were so funny.
I can't hear you.
They were so funny, and then you've got the banter between obviously Kick-Ass, Red Mist, Marty, Todd, Katie,
Big Daddy,
and Hit Girl.
I called him ass kick.
It's that laugh, isn't it?
He's really good at getting his ass kicked.
Yeah. It's just it's a great script, John.
It is, man.
If we're really getting down to the meat and bones here, it's just, and that's, you get a great script and you get a great cast, you're going to get great dialogue.
You really are, Stephen, and that's sort of the heart and soul of this movie as well. I spoke about Big Daddy being the character version of the heart and soul of the movie, but the real strength in this movie lies in the great dialogue and in the great casting choices throughout the movie, just across the board. Perfectly cast, right down to your man from Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. Just perfectly cast. And the way they deliver the lines, it just makes this movie pop. It's sort of viscerally enjoyable, the sort of language that's getting bandied about in this. Yeah. It feels organic, it's real, it flows. It doesn't feel like they're reading off a page, which you see in some terrible movies, but they're few and far between. Stephen, man, Kick-Ass, obviously, or not Kick-Ass, Dave, he decides at some point in the first half hour or so of this movie that he's going to make the jump into being a superhero. He's sick of these goons, these drug dealers, and just petty criminals having their way with the citizens of whatever the hell this is. This is set.
It's
this
supposed
movie.
to be New York.
Is it New York?
Yeah.
There you go. It doesn't feel like New York, does it?
It's not. It wasn't filmed in New York. I think it was a Canadian city. I can't remember what one it was.
You should have filmed it here.
I think that's why there was a lot of green screen backdrops of New York cityscape, and we'll talk about that later on with obviously the technical stuff, but it is a little bit obvious sometimes.
Yeah, they should have filmed it here, Stephen. We double Glasgow. Central Glasgow is New York and Philadelphia and whatnot.
Yeah,
should have brought it here. You didn't think out the box there. A man from Glasgow as well. But Stephen, also he makes the jump into being a superhero. He buys an utterly ridiculous looking suit. This sort of green and yellow thing with the mask.
Who would wear green?
Yeah. I know. Who would wear green, Stephen? Well, not me. I'm wearing my blue tonight, Got to get my blue out.
It's a scuba suit, isn't it?
It's a scuba suit. It's god awful, man. Truly god awful. And he just decides...
saggy arse.
And he wears his Timberland boots with it. It's just an utterly ridiculous looking outfit. He is this gangly, skinny looking guy. Just nothing is hanging together right with this guy. And he starts this sort of lengthy sequence where he's trying to become a superhero. You see it in the proper sort of comic book movies. I'm not doing this down, but the big blockbuster ones where they have their training montages, they're becoming a superhero.
Funny, John?
And he's trying to run across the roof and he shits it.
There was a little bit of this on Sky Movies a few weeks ago actually, and it was a sequence what you're talking about where he's running across the roof. My daughter, and I turned it over quite quickly once I realised what film it was because I don't want her seeing this just now. Probably about the same age as Hit Girl as well, but she said this is like that scene with Spider-Man. She's talking about Tobey Maguire's You know, that kind of thing going on in the first Spider-Man film. And it does pay homage to a lot of these
in front
sort
of the mirror.
Yeah.
There's some great scenes in front of the mirror with Aaron Taylor Johnson sort of dangling
He's
batons.
De Niro.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant, man. A lot of heat at Stephen again, man. We'll get into performances, but Aaron Taylor Johnson is one of the best characters put down, man. Comic book characters put down. And it's he portrays one of the best comic book characters in the cinematic sense. And that's down to how good an actor he is. There's nothing this guy can't do. We'll get into it, though. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. But he portrays John Lennon. And then he does US veterans. And then he does Quicksilver. And then he does things like this. There's nothing the man cannot put his mind to when he tries. But Steve, what did you make about the sort of this sort of try to be a superhero and then his first foray with these two guys and it ending in tragedy?
It ended realistically.
It starts off hilariously though, Stephen. He gets pushed about. What the hell are you looking at? He runs away into the alley. He puts the suit on. He looks up for it. He comes out. He's lacking confidence. Then he finds a bit of confidence, a bit of false sense of security. Bravado. Starts giving some back. He kind of handles himself quite well. They're dodging the baton.
Shot losers, yeah.
And then he gets stabbed. But Stephen, what did you make the first time you seen it? Because I have to say, watching it again last night, when they start laughing their head off, that's exactly what I would have done if I seen some 5'10", 5'11" guy coming out in a sort of scuba suit.
It kind of brings it home and how real the situation would be if you tried this in real life, you know. Unless you're like a very highly skilled martial artist, then you're going to get your ass handed to you in a plate, as they say. It was realistic, John. You know, and I think the way he was just swiping with those batons, you could tell
he's not trained.
He's got good intentions. I think he actually says that in the film at one point. The intentions are there. He's wanting to do the right thing. He's wanting to teach these guys a lesson. And his head, perhaps, maybe comic book. Fantasies and stories have just got ahead of him and took over at this moment, you know, and he's not thinking clearly not thinking straight.
No, he isn't, because he gets stabbed and obviously he gets knocked down with a car.
The guy that knocked him down
just drives away.
Drove away.
You know why he drove away? Because he's seen him in a scuba suit, Stephen, and he thought, I'm not getting mixed with this. I'm
something weird going on here,
yeah. It's like Pulp Fiction at the end.
Yeah.
And that's what the father thinks as well, even though we don't have a gimp suit.
No.
He's naked when he gets taken to the hospital. And the father asking him doesn't even care that his son's been brutally attacked, nearly died. It's just, you weren't raped or anything like that, were you, son? No, they took my bloodied clothes and threw them away, father. Trust me. But Stephen, I love the fact that as he's sort of taking this first foray into superhero life, the movie's beautifully setting up the Mark Strong sort of Kingpin, I'm doing a Benedict Cumberbatch Penguin thing there. Penguin. It's setting his nefarious antagonistic character up. He's a sort of a criminal mobster in the city. I really enjoyed the way that it sort of balanced him becoming this vigilante with Mark Strong's Frank D'Amico character. Just laying the law down. He's getting people killed in microwave machine. Not radiator. That'd be strange. Melting over the radiator. But what did you make of the way they balanced that? And then obviously once he comes back out of hospital, he has a sort of thing. He has the sort of blossoming relationship with the girl that he's infatuated with the teacher, of course.
Yeah.
Strange.
Because she thinks he's gay.
She thinks he's gay. We'll get into that shortly.
It doesn't actually explain how that rumour started in the film. It just sort of materialised, didn't it? But I like to sort of...
It was the fact that he was found naked.
So the rumour started, right, okay, I get it now.
He was up to no good.
Yeah. That's where you can see why the father was questioning his son, because it was obviously... What were you playing at?
Clearly the rumours were stretching as far as the father's workplace, not just school. What was your son up to?
I think... it was good the way they did it. You know, I think you have to establish both sort of sides very early on. So we've got a lot of Dave Lewinsky. Is that what you call him? I think you get a lot of him very early on, maybe the first 15-20 minutes. So it's only fair that you get to see the villain of the movie for the equal amount of time, and what his setup is, what his position is in the city as well. He's obviously one of, if not the big mobster of the city, you know, with all his mob.
Yeah.
So it was good, you know, and it's set up, and the tone that never changed. I didn't think, the humour was always there. It might have been a little bit darker, but
because also when Kick-Ass comes into the fray, and he also has the hit with the sort of viral sensation thing,
yeah,
where he takes on the multiple sort of free criminals outside the store in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Once he sort of rises to stardom, Mark Strong's character, Frank D'Amico, he starts losing his touch with reality. He's getting... No, he doesn't go completely mental, but he starts acting irrationally.
Yeah.
Even his right-hand man says,
John.
when was the last time you went out in public and started getting your hands dirty?
Yeah.
Of course, he kills that impersonator.
I was going to talk about that. That was hilarious. It's terrible. It's the fact where he clocks him in the street and this Kick-Ass is giving high fives. Look at this dipshit, or whatever he says. He's giving high fives and you can see the rage in his face. He's like, I would love to just kill him. And when he goes down the alley, he's thinking, bingo, I've got him.
Is that guy that was peeping on obviously Dave and his friend
it looked
at the
like
start?
The same set. It looked like the same
from the
location.
window.
Yeah,
he gets shot dead.
It looked like the same. I hope he did, because
I thought that was poetic.
Yeah,
he left
it
him.
Was so funny though.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that for the first time and I thought, what's happening here? They've killed Kick-Ass, because that was a bullet in the head, wasn't it? I was like, there's no way he can survive that. I know he's got the metal plates throughout his body, but not in the head.
The fact that I'm laughing, Stephen, I think that sums up tonally where this movie is. Even when there's moments of just utter violence,
but you can see the skill in Frank D'Amico as well. His martial arts are coming to the fray.
Yeah, he
as
kicks.
Well,
he does a sort of roundhouse kick on him.
Yeah.
Brilliant, man. Stephen, I'll get into Mark Strong just now. We'll get that out of the way. I mean, this guy is just superb at portraying villains. He was also the villain in Shazam as well. He's probably been a villain in other movies. Something about him. I didn't know he was Cockney. He was a Londoner.
He played the good guy in Kingsman, didn't he? He was sort of the
help
guy. It was almost like dare I say it, an Alfred from Batman, and he wasn't a butler obviously, but he was there to assist, wasn't he? He was a good guy in it.
I didn't even realise he was English. There you go, man. I mean, I've clearly watched too many Americanised versions of Mark Strong, but he is a brilliant antagonist in this movie. He's just perfect for this sort of Kick-Ass and just this teaming up with Hit Girl and Big Daddy duo. Not duo, triple, what would you even call that? Trifect. Trifect.
Oh, well, yeah. If you
those three.
Kick-Ass, yeah.
He's the perfect level of villain. I mean, even in Shazam, there was a lot of people moaning that we didn't have Black Adam yet. But I think they got the level of villain for that sort of origin story just right. It's key that you get the right level of villain. You don't go too powerful and then it feels unrealistic. This is a school kid.
It's always been the case with a good comic book film. Superman, the movie in 1978, didn't have Superman facing off the General Zod till the second film. Yeah. Because they understood that sort of
has
formula
to be
as well. Yeah.
You have to level up. And he's very much just dabbling with superhero life. Obviously, Kick-Ass and Big Daddy, they're trained and they are much more competent. And they're taking on this guy's sort of hoodlums and taking out his operations and whatnot. But Kick-Ass himself, you have to tear it. And I thought they'd done that well. And Mark Strong, something about him, his looks, dabbling with martial arts and whatnot. He's just a great actor. He has great screen presence and whatnot. And he was perfect. Him bouncing off of what's his name? Even now I forgot his name again. I says it earlier on. Christopher Mintz-Plasse. Plasse,
I think.
Plasse. Yeah. Those two are brilliant as a sort of antagonistic duo in this movie. And without him, I don't think this movie would have been quite as good. I mean, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, very, very good as Kick-Ass. Chloe Grace Moretz, really, really good as Hit Girl. Nick Cage, really, really good as Big Daddy. But if the antagonist wasn't there, much like Yellow Jacket, I think he was called in Ant-Man as well, can often little comparisons. You don't get the antagonist right, the movie falls around about you. And Mark Strong, absolutely brilliant. But Stephen, done speaking about Mark Strong. Well, I'm not. You've not spoken about him, but I'm done speaking.
I think
for now.
For most of the film, his accent was bang on. There was a couple of little moments where I could hear the English accent coming through, John, but I'm nitpicking. It was fantastic through the film. There was that bit where he was talking about, it was saying an effing kids entertainer. It used to be Spider-Man for kids' parties. Now it's this, this and that. It's just, he has moments like that throughout the film where he just goes into a rant. I think his actual sort of sidekick, his number 2, if you like, says, Frank, you're losing it. Yeah. Because he is, he's getting so frustrated.
Says, when was the last time you get your hands dirty in public? Yeah. He's just getting off the edge because this guy's under the skin.
I think
he's just getting fed wrong information though about how Kick-Ass is responsible for things happening when it's not even him.
Yeah.
And it's just he's losing the plot with Kick-Ass and it's sending him over the edge. He wants this guy dead. Hates his stupid scuba diving costume and whatnot. But Stephen, that brings us on to the first time we really get to see Hit Girl in full flow, because of course we see her again. I think they're back and forth interactions.
It's the first time you see her in action.
Yeah,
I think it's this at Raoul's house.
Raoul's house, the apartment, when obviously Kick-Ass turns up and he starts laying the law down. This guy's like, I'm right here, right now. He tasers him in the head. Absolutely amazing. Then he realises immediately,
he's not got
way in over my head. Yeah, I've no B plan. These guys have got me. He's got a blade. I'm dead.
Yeah.
I'm not surviving
this.
this.
In his face.
Yeah. And then also Hit Girl comes in, and what a beautiful scene this is, Stephen. You know the song.
It's the Banana Splits.
The Banana Splits, yeah. She's just flowing around this room, taking them out.
Every time she takes someone out, she looks at him and smiles as if, did you like, as if you're impressed. I just love that.
And he's terrified. He's like, what the hell is going on here?
Midget,
This is terrifying. This is terrifying, man. But it was a beautiful scene, man. It's just the fact that, again, her saying the C word.
She actually, did she not take the legs off of someone at one point? Above under the knee? She just slices them and they just collapse.
Absolutely magnificent, Stephen. She's throwing
right.
knives and whatnot.
She does use the C word.
She uses the C word. A 12-year-old using the C word. Sort of prominent here in Glasgow, but I'd presume not prominent in other places. So it took me off guard the first time I watched it. This little girl, again, dysfunctional.
An affectionate way here in Glasgow at times, though, isn't it?
Yeah. He's a good CUNT. Yeah, we're strange people over here in Scotland, though. We love our profanity, man. We love our swear words over here. Me, more so than most, let me tell you. You do not know how much discipline I am exercising, not swearing every 3 seconds in these videos. Because I've got a very good vocabulary, but as Billy Connolly, a famous comedian over here, if you're not aware of Billy, then where the hell have you been for the last 40 years? As he's famously said, nothing quite gets a point across better than the F word, and I agree completely with Billy. But look, I digress, Stephen, getting off in tangents. Little guy comes out the room, starts flicking the knife around. She's like, oh, I've got one of them as well. She starts doing it, completely scuds him right in the head with it. Kills the sort of woman as well.
She tries to run away.
Yeah, impales her. Yeah, she thinks she's hard. She smashes the bottle and she tries to take her on. Sort of impales her with the 2 sort of katana blades. Big guy outside.
Absolute tramp, wasn't she?
She tries to say she's Raoul at first, and Kick-Ass is like, yeah, no worries then, as we like to say here as well. But Stephen, man, what did you make of the sort of, again, I mean, also Big Dad's a take on. He's a sort of, I don't know if it's, I don't know what you'd say, but he's sort of a take on Batman. I mean, I don't know if they're ripping the piss out of it or they're sort of paying homage to it. But also on the apartment rooftop, we've got Hit Girl, we've got Kick-Ass, we've got Big Daddy across, and it's almost like bat signal.
Did you notice the poster that was in the background? That was the supermodel.
I didn't notice that.
It was Claudia Schiffer, who's Matthew Vaughn's wife. So there's a little Easter egg for you. But
yeah, it's the Vaughn connection again.
It is, and I think that whole sequence was fantastic, John. But I have to make a wee confession here, because the first time I saw Kick-Ass, I missed it in the cinema. It totally went under the radar with me. So the first time I saw it was in Sky Movies, around about 2011, I think it was, maybe the year after.
That's a classic Kashyyyk moment again.
And the first scene I saw was the bazooka scene near the very end, and I thought, what the hell is this film? And I was glued to the last, it was only 10 minutes to go or something like that, 15 minutes to go, and I frantically checked the planner on Sky to see when this film was next on. I think it was on 4 hours later at 2 a.m. or something. I went, I'm staying up for this, I need to watch this. So I already had a little taste of Hit Girl at this point, but it was still good to see that scene for the very first time as well, because it showed the ruthlessness of the character, how skilled she was as well. The choreography, I know we'll get into obviously that later on in the review, John, but it was a great scene, and it kind of opened Dave's eyes up as well into the world that he was entering. This was, he wanted this in his life.
He says that, didn't he? He was lying in his bed and he says, I'm a fraud. These are those 2 are the real deal. Yeah. So you're right, yeah.
Yeah, and his question about how will I contact you, was her response was quite funny as well.
Well, there's a signal at such and such building.
I don't think we can repeat that, but it's funny hearing it out of a child, as Big Daddy would say, his mouth, And
it's how slick they are as well, Steve. They're sort of sliding off the side of the building. They come into his room.
Basically, the police could track his IP address, which he never even thought of.
Yeah, Big Daddy's well ahead of it, man. He's like, look, sort yourself out, kid. Yeah. If you want to roll with us, you're going to have to get your act together here and come up to a sort of level of professionalism. If you want to get in contact with us, put vacation on your webpage or something like that. And of course, that gets used to some poor,
Yeah.
to bad effect later on in the movie when, of course, red mist becomes a thing. Stephen, before we move on in the story, I'll briefly touch on maybe a negative slant in this movie. Looking back 10 years in advance now with 2020 hindsight, there is elements in this movie which make me think this probably wouldn't be made in today's Hollywood.
Nope.
Some of the dodgy language used, some of the references to homosexuality and whatnot, not a chance that would slide with sort of Hollywood producers now. They would not make it.
Not that I'm justifying it, John, but back in 2010, very much the way Friends would use that terminology as well. Friends, the comedy television series, would use that terminology about gay people as well. Now, I understand it is not acceptable nowadays, you know, but you've got to remember the time. I'm not saying it was right or if it was wrong at the time, but even a successful television series, maybe the most successful comedy series in US history, used that terminology and that tone quite a lot throughout each season. So you can understand and you can let it go if you like. It was dialogue of its era, if you like, or its time.
And not just that, Stephen, the thing I would add in, it's not really a negative slant for me because this is young kids at school. This movie's perspective sort of viewed through. They're immature kids, they're still maturing, they're still learning about these things. And that's kind of what kids do at school. They use that, they band that word around in a sort of unfortunate manner. And I mean, it happened when I was at school. I'm not even going to sit here and lie.
John,
you become mature, you're educated.
It was absolutely worse when I was at
school. I was at school in 2006 was the last time I was at school, so it was a long time ago, 14, 15 years ago, and it was widespread, Stephen. That's what young kids did. They used the word gay like that as a sort of joke, obviously not aware that they were hurting people at the time and whatnot. So you have to sort of view it with a degree of sort of, I don't know, hindsight, but obviously understand that it was a different time era, much like Gone with the Wind with the whole racial thing. Different time, things flew a little bit differently back then, but and maybe the source material just called for that as well.
You don't airbrush it. Well, exactly, John. I think that's what made Matthew Vaughn actually pick this thing up. It was a Mark Millar comic that used the C word, I think, in one of its not episodes, what are they called?
Novels.
The volumes or whatever they're called, you know,
issues.
The issues, that's the word, John. I think that's what made him pick it up. You take that away, then Matthew Vaughn would not have made this film.
Absolutely.
That's a fact. If you want to look on IMDb, as a fact.
Stephen, that's what makes the movie so alluring as well. The fact that it is based on sort of high school kids dabbling with superhero issues, superhero life. I don't know how to screw that. I always keep saying superhero life, but superheroism. I think that's probably the better word. That's what makes it so alluring, such an enticing prospect. Why it get made in the first place, because it's different to other comic book movies. These young characters sort of dabbling in the real world with vigilanteism and superheroism. It's completely different to any other comic book movie that I've seen. It's not like the MCU where you have godlike figures. There it's settled in a real sort of world, much like Batman. Nolan's Batman did the same thing on a much higher budget with an absolutely, obviously, iconic character in Batman and Joker. He rooted it in reality. This was like a sort of almost Seth Rogen-esque take on Batman, sort of superhero, grounded in reality vibe going on. But look, I digress. I'm about to go off a cliff edge into a giant rabbit hole, so I'll move on swiftly to Big Daddy burning down Frank's lumber warehouse, Frank D'Amico. And essentially, I've says, throwing a lighter fuel all over a sort of brewing tough war between Frank and his mobsters and these new sort of wave of vigilantes that are popping up in the city. Of course, red mist is a thing at this point as well. He's floating around in a beautiful Mustang. He's trying to entice Kick-Ass into a trap.
A very nice car.
And again, Stephen, you talk about using great music in this, man. We've got Narrows Bartley's Crazy. We've got Christopher Mintz-Plasse and Aaron Taylor-Johnson doing some interesting dancing in a Mustang in their costumes. Absolutely hilarious, man.
It looks like they're going down Times Square as well at this point. Isn't it? Obviously, it's all effects and stuff. I don't think they were really doing that, but such a funny sequence, John. And you actually see Red Mist looking at Kick-Ass at one point when he's dancing.
He's not sure.
This guy's not that bad, actually. He's not you actually do see that in the sort of the climax to sort of setting up Big Daddy and Hit Girl, where Red Mist is actually Fox, actually don't mind this dude Kick-Ass. He's actually a good guy. He's not done anything wrong, but you do see elements of that, and I think it's a good sort of sequence to. They bounce kind of off each other, you know. I don't know if that was maybe not planned the way they were doing their dance moves, because there was a kind of looking at each other as if they were like sniggering.
It was almost ad-libbed,
yeah.
Steve, man, prior to that as well, though, man, I've completely forgot it, because this kind of goes into the beginning of the end for not the Frank character, Big Daddy.
Yeah.
He has that sort of sequence with his ex-partner, and that amazing graphic novel animated backstory,
that
which
is really good.
reveals what his intentions are, why he has this gripe against Frank D'Amico.
Yeah, he was set up, wasn't he?
He was set up, and he was sent to jail.
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, for 5 years, and it's all illustrated beautifully, like it's coming out a comic book.
Yeah.
Amazing. And that sort of bonds you to the character. You can understand why he hates this sort of antagonistic figure. He wants to bring him down. He'll not be happy and content until he is everything that he owns. His whole enterprise is in ashes and flames. Yeah. And he wants to sort of set up a life for his daughter as well. I think the partner says, look, think about her. She didn't have a childhood. And he says, yeah, you know why she didn't have a childhood. Basically saying it's down to you and it's down to Frank. So that was great. And that kind of acted as a precursor to him burning down the lumber. I think it's a lumber warehouse or something.
Yeah, it's a front. It's obviously for London.
You've seen Hit Girl in action in the apartment, and now you get to see Big Daddy in action and what he's capable of. Again, a slick operator taking out the cameras, taking down the men beautifully, moving really better than Christian Bale's Batman, and certainly better than George Clooney's Batman. He could turn his head. All captured through the teddy bear because of red mist. He's put it in there to sort of reveal Kick-Ass being demasked. I love that scene, man. I love the two scenes. I love the comic book graphic novel sort of animation. And I love Big Daddy as a character.
I think as well, John, you're thinking at that point, well, that's Kick-Ass off the hook then, because they've got down to this whole Batman figure that I think one of the guys were talking about earlier on, and I think one of the Russian counterparts was saying he's talking crap, you know, about this Batman guy. So that kind of confirmed that he was actually telling the truth. And it does get you think it gets Kick-Ass off the hook at this point. You're thinking, well, that's him. He should be okay now, but obviously he gets involved. I think as well because they're now homing in on Big Daddy and Hit Girl. I don't think it's Hit Girl. I think they only know about Big Daddy at this point.
Because she's not there,
I think they need Kick-Ass to obviously draw them out, to obviously capture them, which is obviously what happens in the film. But it's important. I think Red Mist and I think at this point Dave has decided to hang up the suit.
He's with that girl.
That's a funny scene as well when he
that
climbs into her bedroom and she's drying her hair and he's like, I'm Kick-Ass, but she can't hear because obviously the hairdryer's on, and then she sprays the mace in his face.
Steve, that's like me when I'm delivering parcels to people and they're cutting their grass. Hey, I've got a parcel for you. Can't hear me. Hey, I've got a parcel for you. And then it's like Donnie Darko. It's like the big rabbit, Frank, towering over, and they get a fright. So that was a great scene. I loved it again, continuing the comedic thread throughout this movie. And then also he reveals that he's Kick-Ass, his identity, reveals he's not gay after all, and he sort of hangs up the scuba diving costume. And at this point, obviously Frank D'Amico and his kid, I don't actually know who the Christopher Mintz-Plasse character's name is, out with Red Mist.
I'll get that, John.
Yeah, but also they are frantic trying to get this Big Daddy character now. They've laid off of Kick-Ass, as you did say.
It's Chris D'Amico,
Chris D'Amico. So obviously that happens, and then he's off the hook at that point. And it's not really until he checks, I think, his emails or something, or his website, that he realises he's trying to get in contact with me. I better meet up with this guy one more time. And that sort of leads us into the confrontation with Big Daddy, him being... They meet up, and it's sort of like Braveheart at the end, where it's a setup.
Did you notice Hit Girl sitting on the window ledge and Big Daddy says manners or something like that? I didn't pick up what that was. I don't remember what that was all about. I don't know if it was the way she was sitting or something. I think she was kind of leering at Red Mist as if she was attracted to him or something like that, and she was just staring at him or something. I don't know what it was, but it was a funny line. Yeah,
well, maybe just the fact she didn't actually introduce herself and say, hi, how you doing?
It could have been, but she was kind of staring at him in a funny way.
The way he shot her, though, I did laugh.
It was a good shot, wasn't it?
The way she fell out the window. I had my notes, man, I can't lie.
There is another bit, John, I did laugh at. It's the bit when Frank D'Amico actually pins her upside down against the bookcase near the end when the two of them are hand-to-hand combat. It's the way he kind of body slams her into the bookcase. Because she's so small, you're like, that's terrible, you know?
I wonder how they done that.
Yeah.
Because it clearly wasn't Chloe Grace Moretz. I wonder if it was a sort of miniaturised body double. I don't know.
Could have just been a crash test dummy.
Yes, perhaps. But Stephen, there was another moment round about that scene when they get Big Daddy and take him away. But the big sort of right-hand man guy takes the bazooka. I'm taking that. Yeah. And he comes back to Frank's place. Frank just looks at him and says, "Oh, bazooka." And then he's like, "Okay." He just gets back to this guy's totally desensitised to violence and just being around weapons. He just sees a bazooka. He's like, "Fair enough, do what you've got to do, man, as long as you don't involve me in it. If you're going to kill some people I don't like, then more the positive to you, or whatever the hell." But Stephen, man, what did you make about the Red Mist character in general, man? I mean, I've said this guy deserves a total sort of talking point to himself, because
he deserved his own film, because it's
man.
so funny. There's this moment, I'm glad you brought it up, because it just popped into my head just before you mentioned them there, when Frank's kind of snorting the coke on the desk and then Chris barges in and his dad's trying to cover it up as quickly as possible, but he's trying to clean his nose. He's like going like that. It's the way that Chris looks up in utter shock, because I can't believe my dad dabbles in drugs. He's so unaware of his dad's sort of profession at this point. But it's such. I thought it was great. I thought Christopher Mintz-Plasse, or what we call him. The first film I saw him in was Superbad, playing obviously McLaughlin, and he was such an iconic character in that, and such a funny guy as well. For a young guy, I think he was only 20 when he did this film, so he must have only been about 17 or something, like 18. Maybe my maths is wrong, but he was very young at the time. But he's always looked younger than he really is. I mean, even now I think he's maybe about your age now, John. And he still looks like he's maybe in his early 20s. Yeah.
It doesn't look
when
my age.
When he's not got the facial hair, because he has had a beard a few times over the past decade.
Oh, has he? Can he pull it off? I bet he can't pull it off as good as me.
No, not at all.
Certainly, Taylor Johnson can pull off a beard and a moustache and whatnot. We've seen that in Nocturnal Animals. But yeah, man, Red Mist, just a great little secondary antagonist. He's not even an antagonist. I'm not even calling him an antagonist. He's a great little foil to Frank D'Amico. He brings in Kick-Ass. He brings in Big Daddy.
But he's not obviously got the same characteristics. Yeah. I think he takes more his mother's sort of side.
He's a spoiled brat.
Yeah, and you see that he's quite well pampered, and I think the first meeting between him and Kick-Ass in that alley when he stumbles and hurts his knees, quite funny.
Ah, shit. Yeah. I actually have the line. I'm pretty sure I do. Maybe I don't. Yeah, but it was a great moment. Yeah.
So funny.
OF, that kind of hot. Kick-Ass. Red Mist.
It's a way to puff her chest.
His costume as well. It looks like a sort of glam rock extra. Something from Kiss or something like that, man. Mind that Avengers video, incidentally. Maybe we should review that.
Oh, I know.
I digress though, Stephen, man. We'll move on before we go down that rabbit hole. Also, we go into... Well, maybe we can speak about performances before we touch upon the finale.
Yeah.
Because I've said Nick Cage's performance, and then later down I've said his performance. Who was the standout? So we'll just amalgamate that all into one sort of...
one, John.
Who for you? I mean, we'll touch upon Nick Cage first.
Yeah.
Because we kind of spoke about him earlier on. He never really had the chance out with a Ghost Rider or whatever it was called to play a proper... Get his mitts into a sort of proper comic book character. This is a man who's really invested in comic books. And I thought he'd done a really good job as Big Daddy. I thought he was the real heart and soul. Obviously in the finale, we're going to touch upon that, but his performance in that scene where he's trying to impart some wisdom onto Hit Girl, get her to do the right thing, save her while he's on fire. It was a real emotional scene.
It's very powerful, yeah.
And that was down to his performance. He's a really good actor, Nick.
He is, John.
He never gets the credit.
I think it was I can't remember the movie reviewer's name. The one from Seattle. The one from Seattle.
Jeremy Jans.
Jeremy Jans actually said this is his best performance since Con Air. I would go along with that, actually. I've seen Nicolas Cage in so many good films over the years, but I would put it up there with Con Air in terms of performance. Yeah. He's not in the film a lot compared to Aaron Taylor-Johnson or Chloe Grace Moretz. But when he is in the film, he owns the scene.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I'm saying this is going to be very difficult to talk about best performances, because I think they've all got different performances, really good performances for different reasons. But Nicolas Cage in this film was fantastic. He was really the heart and soul of the film as well for me.
Yeah, he was, Stephen. Look, I agree. In terms of other standout performances, I think it's a shootout between Chloe Grace Moretz and Aaron Taylor-Johnson. I love the sort of the friend characters of Dave as well. They're great. The little fat guy, Evan Peters is Evan Peters, man. I mean, we could go off on a complete tangent and speak about Quicksilver. That whole Quicksilver thing. I think Evan Peters couldn't star in Kick-Ass 2 because he was going to shoot scenes for Quicksilver, and then obviously Aaron Taylor-Johnson becomes the MCU Quicksilver.
John, that was another thing I was going to
one.
talk about, just going off on a little tangent before we get back around to performances, was obviously talking about the sequel, but I think probably we're best staying away from that and maybe reviewing that at a later date, because I don't think it's very fair to compare the films, because it's not a bad film, but a lot of people compare it to the first film and how it suffered and stuff like that. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
Lightning in a bottle, though.
Yeah,
it's very hard to capture it
different
twice.
Directors, so they've got different visions as well. But yeah, to me, I think it's Chloe Grace Moretz and Aaron Taylor-Johnson.
Absolutely.
If you had to bend my arm and pick one, I think I'd go with Chloe Grace Moretz. Not just because of her age. I just think that she was such a surprise. She was the one that actually drew me to this film after seeing that scene. It wasn't Aaron Taylor-Johnson's performance.
He's a bit of a gimp in it, isn't he, when you think about it, Kick-Ass?
There is a range of emotions from him. I don't think Chloe Grace Moretz has got that challenge in her own, the sense of emotions. She is one-dimensional in that sense, where she has one focus, and that's obviously to carry out her dad's plan. But there is moments in there where the bit in the car when they come back, I know we're going to get into the finale shortly, but this is actually to do more with the performance. The bit in the car when they come back and he says, I would have been dead if it wasn't for you, and she retorts by saying, my dad wouldn't be if it wasn't for you, or something like that, and it really hit home. But I thought it was a great scene between the two of them. Two actors were fantastic in that scene. They
really were, Stephen. I can't argue. I don't know if I could pick between Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Chloe Grace Moretz in this. I think the both of them equally brilliant as he sort of the duo protagonists in this movie. I mean, the real sort of the ones with the real meatier roles and the protagonistic side of things. Big Daddy not in the movie a huge amount.
No.
Friends floated in and out of it. Girlfriend floated in and out of it. It was really just between these two had the sort of meatiest roles. Obviously at the end and the action sequences dominated by Hit Girl. She's the only real competent one, Big Daddy aside, in this movie actually doing superhero things. Kick-Ass, he's worse than a man down.
Until the end.
Until the end. Well, he comes good with the sort of jetpack, of course. But prior to that, I mean, he was just not much of a superhero. He had the batons. He did all right in the parking lot scene. To be fair, he got the shit kicked out of him, but he saved the guy, so fair play to him. But I can't really pick between the two. I thought the two of them were absolutely stellar in this movie. And again, he was a young guy at that point, 20. She was only 12. Fine performances, and a real precursor and sort of a sign of what was to come from the two actors, because they went on to have pretty damn good careers in the 10 years that it's transpired since then. But Stephen, the finale all starts with the sort of live performance. They're looking at the also Big Daddy and Kick-Ass. They're going to unveil their identities. They're kicking the shit out of them with the sort of baseball bats.
John, it gets really dark.
It does get really dark,
At that point, I think the news is broadcasting this, and then they realise how serious this is. It's not a hoax or anything like that, and they have to stop broadcasting, which means everyone's running on their phones to see the continuation. Is
that not a satire as well, Steve, of what's going on in modern day society?
With the sort of voyeurism side of things, Big Brother, etc., watching the reality shows and stuff like that, which
people becoming obsessed and sort of dehumanised.
Really but it was that was a good point, John. Also, it got very brutal as well. Just with the knuckle dusting scenes, the batons as they called them,
the baseball bat,
and the narration as well from Dave as well. At this point, you're thinking, well, he's narrating it, so he must be okay. But he actually makes it clear, haven't you seen these other films where the people that die in the films actually narrate right to the very end? Doesn't make any sense. But it's just it's a powerful scene. Nicolas Cage in this scene is really, really good. Really good. I remember watching it for the first time being very caught up in the moment. Like, I can't believe this is happening. It's very... sad. You know, it's very sad what happens to his character anyway. You know, but what happens afterwards with Hit Girl is some of the best choreography, some of the best flow in action, and visually as well with the night vision goggles. It's almost like a what do you call that sort of video game?
Call of Duty and whatnot.
What's the view called? What do you call that? First person view. Yeah, it's basically like that. And when you're seeing her pulling that trigger, and the result of her
muzzle flash and stuff's just perfect.
It's fantastic, and the sound off the gun as well is just it's amazing. It's just a great sequence.
Yeah, we got that precursor, Stephen, in Raoul's apartment, and this is really the sort of the creme de la creme for the Hit Girl character. Obviously, we see her getting on and doing the sort of borderline Matrix thing where she goes through the lobby and wipes the floor with them. I mean, she almost gets up a level again, to be fair, but really, really good scene. Utilising the darkness to her advantage, the flashing thing to disorientate them and whatnot. Really cool scene. Really, I've said here it has everything. I'm trying to find the actual bit where I say it has everything because I'm toiling to see it. It's violence, poignancy, sadness, laughs via Dave's pals mostly because they are kind of watching on, and the little fat guy's not caring at all for Dave. He doesn't know what is Dave, to be fair. He scored. He's getting kissed and hugged by that girl. He's like yes, man, brilliant. And then obviously we have just everything really, sadness and laughs in this scene. Yeah. Just Hit Girl wiping the floor with them. The sadness coming from obviously Big Daddy and him screaming and
the way
pain.
She throws that blanket over him as well to put the flames out is so sad.
She's
just put her arms right around him, and you can see the sort of daughter-father relationship as well. He says "I love you" and stuff like that. It's quite a sad moment actually when you consider what this film's all about and the tone of it throughout the film. There's that little moment maybe for about 2 or 3 minutes where it actually is quite dramatic. It's quite emotional, as I said, and you get very sad as well. And
you get the Oscar-winning actor to deliver the drama.
And I was very exactly, John. You know, and only a actor of that caliber could really draw those emotions out of you.
Yeah.
But it took me by surprise because
even then he's doing the laugh though.
Yeah, but it made me realise how much I liked the character, and I didn't want him to die. You don't want the good guys to die anyway. But there was something about this character. I was like, if they ever continue this franchise on, I want to see this guy more. I want to see him in future films, but you knew this was the end, and that's what made it even more sad.
And of course, they replace him with the Jim Carrey character in the second one, who's never as good. No. In fact, and I love Jim, and he is good in it, but he's just not as good as Big Daddy, sadly. Steve, before I go into the actual finale, I've kind of brushed over one scene which I was killing myself at, and I have to go back and speak about it briefly.
Yeah.
When Red Mist sort of outs himself as this sort of fourth hero figure, this vigilante, and they're talking about it in the sort of comic book store or the diner, how he's got a cape and he's cooler looking than Kick-Ass, he's got a better outfit. It's when Kick-Ass or Dave goes back to the house and he's in the mirror trying on the cape. It's the music, man.
This town isn't
ain't big enough for the both of us.
Who is it? Does that song? I can't remember.
I don't know.
It's amazing. It's Sticks, I think they're called.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney actually impersonates one of them in the Coming Up video. He's got the moustache.
Yeah.
That's them.
Oh, it's just amazing though.
It's like do you know what it's like as well in that comic book scene? Comic book store scene, I should say. It's almost like they know Dave is Kick-Ass and they're egging him on, wear a cape, but none of them actually do know it's him.
No.
At this point.
I think it's obvious though, man, isn't it? It's sort of that classic thing with comic book characters or heroes. They put a mask on and it completely changes their identity.
Actually does hint. Does anyone notice that Dave's not, and I think it's Erica says, he's clearly at Katie's, you know, well, he's obviously not because he's getting executed.
Yeah, yeah, but again, that's playing on the sort of classic trope from comic book movies. These guys slip out and no one ever seems to notice they're gone, like Spider-Man, Peter Parker disappears just as Spider-Man's doing his things and then he comes back. They kind of played on that in Far From Home as well too, when they slipped away from the bus. Yeah. And Zendaya's character, whose name always eludes me, it's not Mary Jane, MJ, yeah. She sort of says, well, I kind of guessed it because you're never
Michelle,
there.
I think her name is.
Yeah, Michelle. But Stephen, look, I get that out of my system because it was an amazing scene. And you can't review this movie and not talk about This Town Ain't Big Enough for the both of us. Brilliant, man. The finale, the end sequence, the sort of culmination of the movie at Frank's apartment, his headquarters, if it even is his apartment. That great lobby scene when Hit Girl comes in dressed as a schoolgirl and it's the guy from Lock, Stock, fat man. He's not fat. He's like 6'2".
Jason Fleming,
Jason Fleming.
Yeah.
Obviously, he gets the gun pointed in his mouth. He gets
It's a very
killed.
dodgy New York accent.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
But the way she wipes it out, man, it's amazing. And the way she continues to wipe out his men, and some of the CG and the choreography, the slickness of the action, amazing. The sort of ammo coming out the guns and her catching it in midair,
fantastic. Yeah,
shooting, sliding all over the place, doing little like martial artist moves. She runs out of ammo. She hides behind the kitchen counter. She's whipping knives out. It's all going on. She has martial artist sort of fights with Frank. There's bazookas in here, man. I've said there's everything going on, really. It's just an amazing climax to the movie. It starts off with a bang and it ends with a bang. We get Elvis Presley in the scene sequence.
I remember you seeing the film for the first time and you talking about that scene, John, how amazing. It's not the first tune that comes to your head for that kind of scene, but it works so well.
It's the timing.
Yeah, it is. It's the timing.
Glory, glory.
Yeah. It is. I think it's
he's coming up.
kick-ass as well. I think he's swearing at them as well when he's firing the bullets, but it's an amazing scene.
And then obviously the bazooka takes out Frank, and that is a beautiful scene as well. And that sort of enrages and fills Red Mist with the anger that's going to take him through in a different guise into the second movie. I loved the finale, man. It was epic. There was sweat, as you say, swearing. There was action, everything bazookas. The lot. Amazing choreography. Up there with John Wick 10 years earlier.
So, yeah.
Loved it. Loved the final shot of the movie, sort of doing the MCU thing again. 2 years after the Iron Man, to be fair, so it wasn't precursoring the MCU. But they sort of done that where they were setting up another movie in this franchise. Why they've never done another one is beyond me, incidentally.
Well, John,
it's too late now.
I think it's probably, it definitely is. I think we should talk about it. And I think probably because there wasn't high expectations for the success of the first film.
Yeah.
I probably didn't have them signed up for sequels either. Don't know. I'm just surmising. I'm just assuming that they didn't have them signed up for sequels. I think getting two of them back after that film, which once it became a big hit, would have been quite a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it cost more money.
Yeah, exactly, to get them back to reprise the roles. And I think the sequel came 3 years after this one, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and Chloe Grace Moretz was probably about 15, 16 at the time. You could clearly see
she's still teeny, but I mean, even now
you could see the jump though, John.
Yeah.
You could see that the maturity in her was there compared to the first movie. Aaron Taylor-Johnson as well was doing other things as well, Anna Karina and stuff like that, films like that.
Yeah.
So they'd moved on as actors, and obviously the characters as well were getting older. You know, I think in hindsight, perhaps maybe Matthew Vaughn, etc., Mark Miller might have collaborated more in setting this up as a trilogy, you know, writing it and sort of setting it up before the cameras rolled, you know, before the casting even began. This is the way we're going to do this. It's going to be a 3-part, but maybe they never intended it to be either. You know, I think that first film covered it very well. I didn't mind the second film. It wasn't a patch on the first film, but everything's in there in that first film, so you don't really need to extend the story out, because I think you got everything you needed in this one film anyway. Absolutely,
Stephen. Look, before we round up with final thoughts on the movie, quickly touching on technical aspects. Cinematography, Stephen, absolutely incredible. The way they capture the action.
Yeah.
It's Ben Davis who's done the
Jackson.
cinematography. This is a guy who's done the likes of Three Billboards, Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange, The Kingsman. He's on to do The Eternals. He's done Dumbo. This is a guy who's been round the block. He knows how to capture action in comic book movies. Action. He's a really good cinematographer, and it shows in this movie, because it is stupendous. If you don't capture it correctly, again, much like the Heart and Soul thing with Nick Cage, it falls around about you, because the movie is obviously built on slick, fast-paced action. It's a comic book movie, grounded in reality, as I did say. Composer, we've got an array of people working here, talented guys. Mark DeVries worked on La La Land, Moulin Rouge, Romeo and Juliet, a lot of musicals and whatnot.
I like the score at the end when they're flying through the air, leaving D'Amico's place. That da, da, da.
Yeah,
it's very comic book.
I think that was John Murphy, Stephen, that actually done the score. He worked in the likes of X-Men, Days of Future Past, 28 weeks later.
Yeah.
I mean, the list is endless, really. So, all in all, really slick in the sort of technical side of things. The crew are amazing, the cast is amazing. The movie's just amazing, Stephen. I'll go right into my final thoughts, man. I'll just round it up. You can come in and speak about the technical things if you want before you round it up. I love this movie. I can't even recall the first time I've seen it. but I've seen it multiple times since then. I've owned it on Blu-ray. I've subsequently gave the Blu-ray away because I've went fully digital with my collection. But even the Blu-ray, it was amazing, the case.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an absolutely brilliant movie, man. It's unique in the sort of comic book spheres. It's different to anything else. Much like Shazam's tried to differentiate itself in recent times as well. It's almost like that, mixing the comedy with the immaturity of the cast, and Deadpool as well. Profanity. It was almost a precursor to Deadpool in a way.
I would say so, yeah.
And again, it's just down to the sort of the concoction of Matthew Vaughn, the man who done the actual comics, Mark Millar. Was it Mark Millar?
Mark Millar,
yeah. And then obviously you've got Jane Goldman. It's just a great conglomeration of minds in there. I love the movie, man. I love it.
Marv is the production team, Matthew Vaughn's production team, with Jane Goldman, etc. A very talented bunch, John. You can see it in Kingsman. You could see it. They worked well on X-Men First Class as well. I can't remember the reason Matthew Vaughn stepped away from Kick-Ass 2. I can't remember if it was perhaps he had an X-Men gig.
Probably was, yeah.
I can't remember, John. He was also tied at one point to do a Star Wars film, and I think it was one of the prequel trilogy films before the actual directors that did direct, were announced. He was getting bandied about at the time, and you can see why. He's such a talented guy. Yeah. And I'm not doing any disservice to the director on the second film or anything like that, but his direction in this film was bang on the money.
Yeah.
The writing from him and Jane Goldman was fantastic, and their collaboration with Mark Millar as well. Mark Millar has obviously worked on the likes of Kingsman. He's worked with Matthew Vaughn on other things. Obviously, Kick-Ass 2, because it's his characters. But he's done a lot of superhero stuff, like graphic novels with Superman, Justice League, etc. But just the crew on this film, it was lightning in a bottle, I would feel. We talk about the cast enough, but the crew as well, the writing, directing, cinematography, composer, just everything worked in this film. It's an unusual film in the sense that when it came out, it wasn't a big blockbuster film or anything like that. It performed well at the box office, I believe, but it's one of those ones that has a feeling of being a sort of underground hit, if you like. It's a very strange film in that sense, where no one was really counting down the days for this film to come out, but when it did, it made a big bang.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. I can't agree more. And again, that is down to the vibe, the different vibe of the story, the different vibe of the comic book source material. It's just different to any other sort of comic book character story out there. It's just a unique origin story. It's a unique take on the genre. It's a unique character and just the misfits around about him. Everything's unique. I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I did say. One of the better comic book movies I have watched in the last 15 years or so, and that will say something with some of those big MCU movies, some of the amazing DC stuff that's come out. Truly unique, lightning in a bottle. Ultimately, the second one wasn't as good, but we'll probably review that at some point, I'm sure. And we'll not get into comparisons in this.
No.
But I loved it, man. But look, the Jews guys love it. What was your thoughts on Kick-Ass from all the way back in 2010? Terrifying how time flies.
Yeah.
Where has that decade went to? What's your thoughts on it, man? What's your thoughts and performances on the story, on the lightning in the bottle aspect, on Nick Cage? Everything that happened in this movie. Did you love it, hate it, like it? Completely ambivalent towards it? If you've got anything to say about it, you can comment below and let us know what your thoughts are down below in the comments section. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it. And you can subscribe to the channel if you want to see us doing more movie reviews on a Friday, where we get tore into beers, and movie news throughout the weekend reviews, or reactions even, when they drop. See you then, guys, if you subscribe. Bye-bye.